Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Mr. Barber, they do say a third time is a charm, and I've been waiting for you to find your way into the Fox Den, so that on this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio, we can attend to the madness. Much better. And now that I do feel fully revamped and recharged, well, I could continue to power up and feast. Yet, Mr. Barber and myself do have a walk in the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, once again, it is Midnight Lycanthropy time here on StarFox Radio. We, again, have Bigfoot's Barber Shop, who has found his way through the dense, dark, and werewolf-infested forest to sit around the late-night fire and burn the midnight timber with us as we again read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book in an attempt to spread knowledge. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Well, it's definitely good to link up with you again. We were just rolling last night, and I'm doing excellent, man. Just a ton of editing today, and well, you know, before we started recording, glad my 15-minute cough session is proceeded to stop, so that's always good too, man.
Yeah, I was wondering if I was going to have to call 911 to get your address or text or something for a minute.
I know, right? That was brutal, but yes, I am up out of the casket and ready to rumble, man. So what have you been up to?
Oh man, you know what? Something just dawned on me. I left my recorder out in my area and totally forgot to go get it today while I was busy meal prepping for the week. I got to remember to go get that tomorrow.
Yeah, with the Christmas trees, man.
Exactly.
Did you hear about those two people from Washington that were found? They're saying that they were deceased from the elements because they weren't properly prepared and were in an extremely dense part of the forest in Washington, but apparently they were looking for Sasquatch.
I had not heard that. How recent was this?
Just actually a day or so ago, man.
How dumb do you have to be? I'm sorry, but
seriously,
if you're going out and you're not prepared for the weather, you know, and with all the technology you have as far as getting lost, you know, I'll have to look this up to try to see what happened, because I understand getting turned around in the woods, but not having, you know, a flare or something for a signal or whatever. That shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I know it's pretty gnarly. And what if I told you I could send it to you right now and you're just gonna, shake your head even more because as you stated, it's just not really responsible or even intellectual to do that. I mean, why would you put yourself, like you said, in a situation where you know you're not properly situated and something bad could occur? Yeah, I just sent it to you, man. And it's definitely not something that you would like to bestow upon yourself. So yeah, when you go out and check for your recorder, don't become like these guys, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're supposed to go home Christmas Eve.
Hmm.
Been looking for him for 3 days. Ill preparations. I like how they say that. That's short for being stupid. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh man, and this is what gives what I do a bad name. When people do less, make less than intelligent choices about what they're doing, how they're doing it.
Kind way of saying it, man, for sure, because that's what I try to tell everybody. I mean, people think we're so smart, right? And animals are so not intelligent, or, oh, we're human, we can handle all predators or environments. These two dudes, it was two of them too. So you have double the chance of survival now. I mean, there's two of you, and you still fail miserably, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it sounds like they walked right into just a gnarly mess. I mean, at some point, you have to have the intelligence to turn around and know you're in over your head.
Yes.
Freezing temperatures, snow, high water levels, heavy rain, downfall, heavily wooded terrain. That all has the hallmark of go home and enjoy some hot cocoa.
Yeah, and be with your family or something, man. Correct that. It's just logical, common sense. That's all. I mean, that's unfortunate, but like you said, this is what I'm talking about how people just don't have a grasp on things. That's why we get fox and coyote footprints sent to us that are dog man. Get that out of here. Or you have black bear or known animal vocalizations being called cryptids or dogmen and such because we have people making decisions like these two did. I mean, what is happening here?
I just can't, fathom where their minds were, where they get there, see what's happening, or even hike a mile and see what's happening, and then not have the common sense to turn around and go home. Call it a day.
Yep, and like you said, no wonder, unfortunately, people kind of smirk at things that are trying to be presented because, I mean, these people were going around telling people they were Sasquatch researchers and such, and well, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's definitely not the best look for sure.
No, and then people wonder why science won't give a second glance at researchers when people like this are calling themselves researchers.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal stuff for sure. And to the audience, Mr. Barber is a weekly host. So, I mean, he's been on here a ton, but for people that have been listening, that are OGs from the beginning, you should remember Mr. Barber is up in, yes, Werewolf Square. He is in Michigan. So, an area that is pretty infamous when it comes to Dogman activity. And also, he and his family have had a gnarly encounter that was covered on our thread as well. So tonight, Brian wanted to touch base on, well, yes, the infamous, nefarious, whatever you would like to say, Michigan Dogman, eh?
Yeah, we've been hitting Maine and New England. I thought we'd give Michigan a little love tonight. The Wolverine state. and apparently stayed of the Dogman from, if you're to believe the rumors. Yeah, so, I mean, all the way back, I looking at a little history, and I didn't realize as far back as these went, because I only got on board when the Dave Cook song, or Steve Cook, hit the air. But apparently Wexford County in 1887, there were some lumberjacks that were supposedly working, and then as they were coming out, had sightings of the Dogman then. So and the weird part is, I would have thought back in that date they would have been more in the UP instead of the Lower Peninsula. Wexford County's down Detroit area, and obviously back then it wasn't as populated, but the fact they were downstate instead of up makes me how they got there, because there's no connection back then to the UP and the Lower Peninsula until they built the Mackinac Bridge. So did they come around from Maine and through Rhode Island or something like that? And then not only that, but as far as sightings go, I would think there would be more in the UP. But at the same time, then it hit me. It's like, you have to have three things. You have to have the Dogman, you have to have the person, and somebody willing to report it and record it. So, I mean, here in Michigan, even now, the UP is, you don't talk to people in the Lower Peninsula. So maybe that's why it never made its way down as far as reports. And then in 1938, there was a guy who was fishing along the Muskegon River, out minding his business, when he was attacked by a pack of wild dogs. He took a thing of self-defense and let a round go in the air, and it scared off most of the dogs. But unfortunately, one of them stood up on its hind legs and glared at the guy. Wasn't even fazed by the gunshot. So I've seen a German Shepherd stand up, but he was claiming it was over 7 feet tall. And then the sightings start getting a little more frequent. You get into the 1950s and 60s, and things start heading further north in Michigan. You start in Allegan County, which is still downstate, and then you get into my neck of the woods now, Cross Village, Big Rapids, Manistee County, which is the Manistee National Forest. And of course that's big time Dogman country there. As a matter of fact, as of 2 weeks ago, 2 years beforehand, they had sectioned off that was normally open to the public area, Manistee National Forest. I don't know the exact acreage that they closed down, but they did close it off from the public with huge cattle gates saying closed due to aggressive wildlife. Rumor had it, a supposed Dogman had gone through and been harassed in several of the campsites, more than once. So that's when they came through and put the gates and the fence up, quarantining it off, and it's still closed to this as of 2 weeks ago. But it sounds like the Dogman really took off when Steve Cook came out with his song, which was supposed to be a prank, which makes me laugh, because to me, it's kind of the turning point in what I know of the Dogman anyway. It kind of put it on the front cover again. And obviously the Gable film came out after that. They debunked that. They kind of put the 2 and 2 as trying to put spotlight on the Dogman, bring attention in kind of a comical way, not meaning it to go as far as it did. But they also started making films about it up here. There's a film company called Brower Productions, and I know the secretary there, and they're in the process. They filmed 2 Dogman movies already, and I think they're finishing up, or did finish this summer, the final third. So there's a trilogy of Dogman movies. And reports are still coming out. I know Benzie County's had a couple, and obviously Manistee. So what are all these people seeing? obviously misidentification is going to be up there somewhere. But, as far as back in the 1800s, I don't know why two lumberjacks, who I'm sure were big burly dudes, would make up seeing something like that coming in out of the woods. I don't know what your thoughts on all of that are.
Yeah, that's great stuff right there, man, for sure. And the one that you're referring to with the lumberjacks, correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be a discrepancy a little bit in that story, because according to Steve Cook and others, it was 11 lumberjacks, not 2. And they had traveled a pretty decent distance to try to find work. And when they were out there, they happened to come across what they had thought was somebody's pet dog or something that was darker in color. And they tried to, catch it, and were trying to, in their eyes, play with it, but it seemingly wasn't interested and was actually frustrated and ran into a pile of logs. And one of the lumberjacks took a stick and was trying to jam it in this section it was hiding in to try to get it to come back out. And when it came out, it made 2 popping noises, which we had talked about, as it stood up and then screamed at them like some sort of human wolf-like scream howl. And it caused the men to immediately quit their job and then never come back to that area. So I don't know if that's the same one you're referring to, or if there is another instance with lumberjacks.
It could be. The couple articles that I looked up on weren't that detailed in it. It just said a couple of lumberjacks spotted them as they were working.
Yeah, I think it's that same case, and for some reason, like you said, just with like the lack of details put into that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we're speaking about the same one, and it was 11 lumberjacks. But everything else, seems to kind of tie into that for sure, and that's pretty interesting. And when you are talking about like the Dogman movies, are those total cheese ones that are on Tubi, like Dogman 1 and like Dogman something of the pack or whatever?
Those are the cheesy ones, made right here in my hometown.
Oh, bro, that's so funny. I tried to, watch those just because I think Dogman and stuff are cool. But man, it was like beyond like below B film, I feel like. I mean, I just remember one of the scenes where the costumes were so bad. They're standing around these police cars, and then like this guy and his friend, they're like teenagers, are out trying to prank like their dad or something, dude. And then they get attacked by this terrible looking like on a Dogman thing. So that just made me chuckle, because I like the creature features for sure. But then sometimes you get to a point where you're like, yo, I can't even.
And what's sad? He has a full-blown production company, and they've done some things for National Geographic and PBS, and
he's putting out that? Oh, boy.
That out. I mean, the Gable film looked better than that.
Dude, doesn't my music video with my little brother look better than that? Like,
oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's... I want to ask Elizabeth, my friend Elizabeth, who works there, I want to ask her, did you pay for this? Because it sure wasn't with his budget.
That's just what I'm saying now that you said that. Because, I mean, dude, he's got to have something that he could, if he's done those type of, endeavors, he should be able to put out something, like Monster Quest specs at least, man. I mean, dude, he could have made a lot better. Man, you and I could, I don't know, I'm not trying to knock, because like I said, I like creature features, but dude, those were, I mean, B flicks sometimes can be decent, man, if you go into it accepting that, and you're just looking for like a crazy, werewolf type thing. I mean, I watched one, what the heck was it called? Dire Wolf or whatever, and the costume was all right, man, and it was pretty gnarly, dude. This thing that they reconstructed ended up being like a dire wolf werewolf, total B flick, man, but it was like done by Sci-Fi Channel and stuff. So I mean, it still is, like you said, at least up to a little bit of specs,
Yeah. Yeah, if you look up Brower Productions, you'll see he's got some good credentials. So Maybe he let his kid direct it or something. I don't know.
That is so funny. I mean, I'm just laughing because it honestly looked like it was filmed on a potato or something.
it, it was. I saw the road where they were doing one of the scenes, and it's just an empty field and a house. You know, if you were to look at from the right, it's a white house with, black like old time shutters on it. And if you go 100 yards, you're at US 31. It's a main highway. So they didn't go deep into the forest for locations or anything. They barely went off the main road.
That is so funny. And another case to you up in Michigan, just to be aware of, there is a group of individuals that still try to put it out there as actually occurring. The supposed OnStar accident that occurred where someone calls in to OnStar and the OnStar person, responds, and this individual is saying that they flipped their car and that some sort of werewolf-like creature ran across the road, and then you hear like screaming, and then the call goes silent. So Jody Cook, the founder of the North American Dogman Project, personally investigated that case with others, and he's former law enforcement. And at the point in time when he was looking into this case, because I believe it was back around 2009-ish, it was a minute ago, but being former law enforcement, he was unable to find any sort of reports, news articles, or anything. And we actually had a person that was a manager at OnStar at that point in time as well, and he had nothing on file collaborating with this supposed call in, and also the way people responded, it just wasn't proper protocol for OnStar to handle the situation. So yeah, everything points to massive red flags about it being faked, but people still try to toss that around, man, which is unfortunate because actually Steve Cook in his song, all those other encounters are real, but he even touches on that OnStar call, but it's not a real call.
Yeah. And the whole every 10 years on the seventh year, like where did that tradition come from?
My thought on that potentially is, like you said, I don't know Michigan's setup, and you'll have to explain why it's harder to speak to people on the lower peninsula, etc. But that's what I'm thinking is maybe originally back when some of this was being documented, like per se the 1800s and such, you don't see people all the time. It's a lot harder to link up. So maybe just people were having these encounters, but it was only being documented every chance per se that someone came across the area to document it, maybe. So it could have just fallen into the realm of seemingly every 7 years, because there's not that now. I mean, I have people that claim they have daily encounters. So
No, and that could make sense because there's a big push from the people in the Upper Peninsula to become their own state, because we're the only state where there's a north, technically, a north and south that isn't land connected. North Dakota and South Dakota are connected. The Carolinas are connected. In Michigan, the only thing connecting them is a bridge. But
wait,
because
really?
yeah, they're more connected to Minnesota than they are the Lower Peninsula.
And where are you?
I'm in the pinky of the mitt. So right where that pinky comes down and starts to go up into like the first finger of the mitt, I'm right in that bend, real close to
And
Lake Michigan.
okay, and that's like near Manistee too, kind of, you said you are?
Yep, 45 minutes from there.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to, in my head, paint an idea as to where you are. Yet there are, like I said, a ton of some of the OG encounters. I mean, to a lot of people, I've stated it before, the Michigan Dogman is not the first encounters of this. I mean, I have ones that predate those ones that we're speaking about by 20 years or so, give or take, up here in Maine. And I'm assuming if people in other states were diving into it and really looking into history, they probably could find ones that are potentially even older than that. So the Michigan Dogman gets a medal of honor in regards of everyone thinks it's like the OG, but as I just stated, it's really not, because I mean at that point in time, people wouldn't have even heard about the Michigan Dogman up here in Maine in like the 1800s, you know?
And see, and that was where I was when we talked earlier. I said I had kind of a theory on why they were seeing them downstate, was because there's nothing connecting the Upper Peninsula to that side of the United States. They would have to come down and around either through Canada or around through the States, which puts them in that Detroit area. So, maybe they migrated from Maine, and as they made their way down up into Michigan, and then just kept heading farther north once they got there.
It's pretty brilliant, man. I mean, that would tend to make a logical assumption right there. I mean, I'm definitely down with that. I dig that because it's all pretty much connected to an animal. Canada and Maine and North America, it's all one and the same. So path of least resistance, I mean, they don't have to stop at toll booths or have passports like you and I do to get up to Canada or at a country. Path of least resistance, like you said, they could just cut right across through like, Toronto and all that, and then pop right into Maine. And so that's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's a crazy phenomenon. It only gets crazier the more you dig into it. I mean, my family's encounter was in '64. I think that was even before the term Dogman was coined, wasn't it? I can't remember when Dogman was coined.
Yes, there is again some discrepancy on that of who came up with that. And you know what? Until someone can show me why my claim right here is incorrect, then I'm going with always the fact that Linda Godfrey is the one that coined Dogman when she started doing the Beast of Bray Road and stuff. She pretty much was more or less the one to use that term, because she also had stated that she potentially wishes she would have chose a different terminology.
I remember that now that you say that part. I do remember saying about it made it sound more powerful than just Dogman, more scary or something like that.
Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of the interviews where she blatantly says that as well. I can't remember which documentary it is on. I really wish she was still around because she used to speak to a ton of people, and I would have loved to get her to sit down and speak with us for sure. But yeah, she says that, right there. So again, you're always going to have somebody else that claims that, oh, until Steve Cook booked that out or etc., there was no coin for that. But again, I pretty much give her the crown on that because I had never heard any mention, and in her books and all that, there really isn't any mention of that until she said that. So
yeah, because everything was Beast or Rougarou or
Loop Guru, exactly, yes,
things of that nature.
or skinwalking and things, exactly. She, came out with that term and even did say herself that she kind of wishes it wasn't, but it is what it is for sure. And what else in your area have you been diving into, man?
Pretty much just the last few weeks has just been Bigfoot. I want to get to the bottom of that new North Carolina video. That just sounds crazy. It reminds me of the new. I know I'm off topic here with Bigfoot a little bit, but if you get a chance, check the video out, and because it reminds me of, remember when the TV show aired that old family video from in New York where they had the one swinging in the tree, and even the primatologist couldn't identify what primate it was.
Interesting. I vaguely might have heard about that. I mean, I am pretty familiar with the OG Sasquatch stuff, but I will say in the past, 10 years or so, my interest has definitely been way more into Dogman. So I definitely am slacking on certain things for sure with that.
Yeah, well, it just reminded me of, I think the New York one was 1976, and in the background you can see something jump off the shoulder of a bigger adult, we're assuming, and start just swinging in the trees through one arm like a monkey. But none of the primatologists could um, identify which one it was. If it was an escaped zoo or anything, it didn't match anything they knew of. And this one sounds like it's along the same lines, where it's jumping around in the trees and it's mad and it's throwing sticks at the guy. And people are going through it frame by frame so far, and they haven't found any cables or anything. But that, and trying to find legitimate Dogman cases, because everything is all on the YouTube videos. It's not, most of them aren't documented. It's hearsay.
Right? That's what I'm saying, man. It's unfortunate with that, but that's why I really like to dive into the deep historical aspects and do as much grinding as I possibly can. And your Bigfoot mentions, that's definitely some pretty interesting, gnarly stuff for sure. And is it just because of your encounters that you are more fond of Bigfoot than Dogman, or is it other reasonings? I've never really asked you.
I think because, like I said, I only got on the Dogman train really recently. Heard of them, definitely thought they were possible, because if you got 800-pound monkeys, why not, a 600-pound canine? To me, you can't draw that line where this one's real, this one isn't. Sorry. But it seems to me, as far as my interest alone, I think it was just because of the encounters that started when I was 3 and 4, and then when lasted until my grandma moved, I was about 12, and then I saw my first one at 16. So it's just always been part of my life. Where Dogman's just more kind of recent. They told us the story of their encounter in Nuevo back in '64, but I think I was 14 at the time, so really didn't pay much attention. Thought it was just a scary campfire before we go to bed thing. And that was why, before I repeated it, a few months ago, I asked my mom just to make sure that was what she said. And she's like, yeah. And I said, you sure it wasn't just dogs or something? And she was, well, I don't know what kind of dog would try the doorknob, and I don't know how a dog would throw a German Shepherd through a window, and what kind of dog stands on 2 legs. Point taken.
Yeah, pretty gnarly stuff, man, for sure, right there. And what do you think is cooler, I guess, the whole Bigfoot and Sasquatch thing or the whole Dogman thing? I mean, what do you think's more interesting about that? A undocumented thing that looks like a hyena or some sort of canine running around, a werewolf, whatever, or some sort of primitive hominoid or giant ape running around?
I section them off. I got them in 2 categories. Bigfoot I can deal with. Go out, look for, because you hear okay accounts. Yeah, you hear some nasty ones. Yeah, you hear some unfortunate unalivers, but I just haven't heard of a happy dog man yet. So I really don't want to go looking for him.
Yes, I would totally agree with that right there. I mean, I don't think it would be a potential positive interaction either. And when it comes to cryptids, just in general, I'm not really interested in too many of them, to be quite honest with you, because there are so many and just such a lack of science and evidence. And yeah, it's cool, but again, there's just nothing to back it up. So I only really take interest in the things, like I said, that have clarity to it and something that I can look into. Like, meaning, I've heard things about small little people in the forest and all this. Okay, interesting, and little small ladders. But then when you come back, the ladders have just vanished, and sounds all cool and interesting. But again, there's just no science for me to really be able to hold on to, man, with that, because sure, stories and things are cool, but I feel like a lot of those just don't have anything to really back it up. I mean, Jersey Devil, for example, the times that supposed footprints were found, they were verified by people that are understanding of birds and things in that area and such, where when it landed, of course, like I said before, it looked different in the snow than it actually was. But besides that, there's no unknown documented vocalizations. There are no sort of hair samples and things. So can't work with any of that. Loch Ness Monster, everything about it has always been hoaxed. Surgeon photo, the guy before it that was a big time hunter did it twice, man. So, all right, yeah, we're going to just totally get that up out of here. Sure, Mothman and such sounds cool, but again, nothing besides reports. I mean, I don't have unknown hair samples, footprints, vocalizations, and none of that to work with. So, okay, same thing with Goatman and all of these things, like the little people in the forest and shadow people and black-eyed children, whatever. Anything I'm naming off right now, again, it's all interesting. It sounds cool, but at the end of the day, there's nothing to stand on for that.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. And like I said, I try not to draw a line, but that doesn't mean I think everything's real. I mean, Michigan's famous for the melon head people. It's like, when I heard that term, I came apart, and it was like, melonhead people, what? They're supposedly were created by science as little assassins, and they escaped, so now they're in the forest terrifying people. And I'm like, that's not a melonhead. That's some little poor little redheaded stepchild that got kept in the basement too long. Just, it's more believable than an assassin that was 3 feet tall with a bulbous head running around.
Right? That's what I'm saying. If anything, I could see the melon heads maybe being grays or a depiction of something like that, because a lot of people claim, that the extraterrestrials that they've seen or whatever are gray based. And same thing with like the Dover demon up here in, I believe it was Massachusetts, where that occurred. Again, that looks like a gray. So there's actually, something to grasp onto with those right there, to an extent, like, okay, cool. But then, like you said, little assassins let out in the forest and such. I don't know, man. I mean, when you speak about Wendigo and skinwalkers, again, you have a ton of historical documentations and actual like relics and things, paintings of indigenous people speaking about it. Again, something you can actually hold onto and dive into. But I've never heard indigenous people speaking about moth people and such. So, I mean, if there was a Mothman and things, I just feel like it would have been mentioned again, and there would be stuff to stand on, like we said with the Cynocephala. I mean, Herodotus and Alexander the Great. I mean, Anubis. You got the Egyptians and things. So, I mean, again, whether it's true or not is something we're trying to figure out, but it's actually able to be grasped on. So now reptilians, interesting, and there's actually some historical documentation to support that a little bit. So, okay, cool. Now, the Loveland Frogman. What? A frogman? Interesting. Again, do I think that could be a reptilian? Sure. But a frogman? I don't know. That's just what I mean about sometimes it's really hard for me, anything outside of like really Sasquatch and Dogman, because we have stuff that is actually scientific based or we're looking into that. All the other ones I've really spoke about are, again, interesting, but they're really no more than creepypasta and urban legends, I feel like.
Yeah, and that goes along the same lines with Bigfoot. There's historical accounts. And I mean, there's even cave drawings. Oh, where are those? But they're supposed to be dated 1,500 years ago by the Native Americans. And everything in the drawings with it, including, different birds and animals, are all true, why would they put that one fake being on there?
Again, spot on, man. And I would always be open to change my opinions about things. So, I mean, if someone could show me quality evidence that fits into science as to why Mothman is real, I'm open to listen. But my whole entire life, I've never seen anything to bring clarity to that. So it is just interesting, but that's why, like I said, I find it that the whole Dogman and Sasquatch thing has clarity, but kind of goes hand in hand too because of some of the potential descriptions and things. And before we let you get back to your busy schedule, man, is there anything else you'd like to touch base on tonight, bro?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Mothman because I watched an interview with the guy who researched that whole project for the movie, and saw his interview with the original of the whole historical gathering. What's that guy's name? Not the guy who did the movie, but the guy the Mothman movie was about. I mean, the guy was a complete nut job. He was so arrogant and inconsistent and just out there. But at the same time, people are holding on to his. I mean, be careful what you believe in, people, because next thing you know, you're putting on Nike sneakers and taking a ride on Hail Bob.
I know. Why is that? Do you think that the cryptid community just is so desperate to grasp onto things that they hold on to things that are not good to hold on to, like the Gable film that's already been debunked? And like you're saying right here, this dude is a straight up Looney Tune, and we're going to look at this as credible just because he said it, but nothing else can be verified from other angles. I mean, it's like with Lester Crowley. I mean, he was into the occult and all this, but also he was psychotic, man, and used substances and had issues. And again, so was he really talking to demons and such and summoning things, or was he just hearing voices in his head and talking to himself,
Yeah, the best analogy I can come up with is imagine you're out at sea during a storm on a ship. You fall overboard and you grab the anchor chain. So now you're holding on to dear life to this anchor chain. Storm passes, you get to port, and they drop the anchor and you go with it. But in your head, you're somewhat afraid to let go of the anchor chain because it already saved your life. Why would you let go? So I think that's where these people get an idea in their head and they just can't let it go, despite everything telling them you're wrong in this instance.
Which I understand when you have a great thought. I mean, everyone wants to have something that we think is a great example to come true and such, but at the end of the day, dealing with scientists and being a scientific mind, that's not the way things work, man. I mean, once we figure out in our eyes something isn't substantial, it gets put into that category of not substantial. So we never dive back into that and bring it up again. But over and over and over again, people just keep on sending in things that have been debunked and that are hoaxes and such. And it's just so funny, like that zoo a while ago that had a picture that looked like a person in a werewolf suit standing outside, and there's nothing to back that up whatsoever. Yet everyone still wants to pull that up all the time and try to send that into us, and it's like, dude, that's not a real thing, okay? I mean, why is everyone else claiming they've had such a hard time picking up something on camera and such, and this thing literally just walks out into a spotlight area and stands in front of security cameras? Okay.
Yeah, social media is a huge problem with that because people see it, don't look into it, and they just forward it.
TikTok much, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez, bro. It's like, are people doing their research on TikTok this day and age, man? There's nothing real of paranormal on TikTok. It's so cringe, man.
Did you see speaking of research, there was a study done. It was like, what was it? 38 or 43% of people under the age of 25 get their news info from TikTok.
That's disgusting, dude.
I mean, think about that.
Yes, the internet is great and such, but you have to at least have enough chromosomes to be able to understand the aspect of filtration, what is real and what is not. I mean, if you look up something and it pulls you to fandom and Wiki and such and starts telling you about video game characters being part of factual existence, well, you at least need to be able to decipher this and realize, wait a second, all right, maybe I should be going to BBC or something to look up what I'm trying to find, not fandom.
It just hit me why this is a problem.
Dude, I mean, seriously, it's so messed up to even think about that, but that's just what I'm saying, man. Like, holy people, we just lack common sense so much sometimes. I mean, like when we started off this conversation with the two gentlemen, unfortunately, that are no longer with us, man. I mean, common sense has just gone completely AWOL, dude. So again, if it's not prevalent now, you have to really wonder, was it ever prevalent? I mean, if we have plethora of idiots now, was there not plethora of idiots back then before we became more civilized, right?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, these people bundle up and prep themselves like they're going out, like finding Bigfoot. The problem is, guess what? They never found Bigfoot, so they probably didn't prep right. Don't follow their example.
No, and they get back into their van and drive to a hotel at the end of the night, dude. Like, what?
Yeah, only one of them camps. The other three are back in having, cocktail weenies and hot toddies.
Straight up, man. So to everybody out there, just be careful and use common sense because it's just something that is a must. So again, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, though, man, and trying to figure out what's occurring and also, well, the lack of common sense people do have. But I look forward to our future endeavors as well. And great stuff, man.
I look forward to, and everybody have a happy new year by the time you hear this.
I do adore and appreciate every single one of you. And thank you for once again tuning in tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share my content. Feed the algorithm, and I must get some rest.